Not streaming. Streaming, not streaming. We are streaming. Cool. Apparently we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our next free holistic seminar. As everyone in the room knows, I'm Ray Brunellen, and I'm a traditional naturopath, healer, most days, and been practicing in Victoria for 14 years now. And our entire philosophy is to help you reverse your health, as in you have bad health, reverse to good health, not the other way around, hopefully. Again, on good days, it doesn't happen. Without the use of drugs or surgery. And what we do is we work with individuals one-on-one through dietary changes, through targeted supplemental support of their organ and glandular systems in order to gradiently, which means step by step by step by step, improve their health for as long as they wish to improve their health. Because as long as you live, you can actually improve your health. The only way you can then you don't have to worry about it. So, works out. So anyway, this evening it's going to be very interesting, I think. At least it's interesting to me, hopefully to you. It's a new topic. I have not discussed organotherapy before. And really it goes into an entire branch of where I'm taking what I've talked about a lot, the podcast, Nutrition Maverick podcast, which the premise is that there is a literal war on for or against our health. It is not something that's just happening. It is actually planned, it's well orchestrated, it is extremely well funded, and it's been going on for a very long period of time. And frankly, it doesn't matter if it's your reality that you agree with me or not, because it's happening anyway. And so we're going to be talking about what is occurring and how it actually is affected through, or we can actually defend ourselves with, the use of organotherapy. Unfortunately, this is not a sex ed class, so be careful with that word. Organ therapy is what it actually stands for. Okay? Come on, that was funny. All right. Apparently not. All right, fine. So this is not new. This organotherapy is not new. It's been around since at least 1889. And in 1889, there was a fellow, his name was J.B., and it's a French name that I can't pronounce, but it starts with an S and ends with an E and something over the E like that. So that's why I can't pronounce it. But nonetheless, he said that he took, or I should say, ate sheep, and I think it was actually calf testicles, and reversed his aging, which means he was impotent at the age of 72. And he reversed that situation. So that's pretty cool. All right, and so that's when it was first started being utilized as, let's say, in the modern age. However, the Greeks and the Romans talked about it a lot. They would eat brains and for different kinds of psychiatric or apparent mental disorders in individuals. So it's been actually practiced for a long period of time. It's interesting, though, that in recent decades, less and less people, hardly any at this point, eat organ meats at all. Right? And we always hear through popular media and mainstream media, as it's very frequently called, that we always get all the nutrients that we need in our diet. And have you ever wondered how that's possible? Oftentimes they say you don't even take a multivitamin because you get everything in your diet anyway. Well, what they're actually talking about are the nutrients that have been researched. So what I mean by that is for example, let's take a beet. Now, a beet tastes pretty good. I particularly don't like them because they're too sweet, but nonetheless, lots of people like them. There are over 600 different chemical compounds in beets. Do you know how many have actually been researched as far as what they do within the body and how it affects human biochemistry? 30. Okay. Interestingly enough, those 30 are what the official people say are most important for the body. And all the others are superfluous. Isn't that interesting? So realize that when they say you're getting all you need, it's only the nutrients that they know about and understand how they work. It's not all the nutrients that the body needs. In fact, there's very little known about all of the nutrients the body needs. Okay? So ask yourself this question. Understanding that when you hear that nutrients that you're getting all the nutrients you need in your diet is only the 20 or 30 or whatever main nutrients that have been studied and understood and researched, what nutrients does your heart need in order to regenerate and repair itself? Or what nutrients does your liver need in order to repair and regenerate and function flawlessly? Or any organ or gland for that matter. Isn't that very interesting? So what about for those who take multivitamins? You know, let's talk about the specific nutrients. And actually what I did is print it out. You get to exercise your camera woman skills. Print out a nutrition facts label. Unfortunately, it's not in your paperwork, I'm sorry. I was cheap and only made one copy. So and so what this is one a day. One a day is a Bayer company. By the way, do you know who Bayer is? It's not an animal in the woods. It is definitely Bayer aspirin, for example. It's a gigantic pharmaceutical multinational company. It is German, and in fact, it is founded by Nazis. Don't know if anybody knew that or not, but it most certainly is. And in fact, almost all pharmaceutical companies are actually from Nazi ties. Tell me that's not a war on for your health. Okay, so anyway, interesting, isn't it? Think about this, chemotherapy. You know where chemotherapy came from? It came from chemical warfare weapons. All right, and they found out that I think there were rats or however the story goes, and where they were storing these chemical weapons, that it affected tumors within the rats. And it's like, oh, this is a great idea. Let's just inject that stuff in people, and it's going to cure cancer now. So there you are. Talk about using weapons to attack your health. Interesting, isn't it? That's where chemo comes from. And by the way, chemo is only 2% effective across the board. 2%, which means 98% ineffective. And what happens? You get chemo, and then you go to radiation, and it's like, well, it shrunk it a little bit, but we still got to cut everything out. That's great. Okay, back to the subject at hand. Okay. And cure, by the way, just as an aside, that means 5 to 7 years. It doesn't mean you're forever cured, just 5 or 7 year cure rate. So here is the list of one a day, very popular multivitamin, of the essential nutrients that you need. All right, and so let's see, there's 5, 10, 15, basically 15 or 20 nutrients there. Isn't that interesting? Now, surely you would think, looking at the heart or the lungs or the liver, you know, the liver does thousands of different chemical processes, right? Thousands. There's phytonutrients, for example, phytochemicals in cruciferous vegetables that your liver has to have, and it's one of the only sources of those specific phytochemicals in order to go through what's called phase 2 liver detoxification. All right? So certainly those chemicals, for example, are not listed here. So how could the idea of, oh, you know, even a multivitamin is going to give you all you need, you don't need supplementation of any kind, how could that idea or that theory be correct? Do you get my point? Am I clearly communicating? Good. So it's not, obviously. So the question becomes, how then do you get what you need in order for all of your organ systems? Well, people used to do it decades ago by eating organ meats. Actually, the internal organs are the most important part of whatever carcass you're eating. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? It really is the most important part. You know, looking back at Native people, the first Americans, otherwise known as Native Americans, what was the most important part of the animals that they hunted? The internal organs. First, the person who killed it would drink the blood, then get the organs that they wanted, and then everything was, the rest was given to the tribe. And the meat, what we typically eat, was very often given to the dogs. So what does that tell you about what they thought was most important? Isn't that interesting? Of course, the bones are given to the dogs too. It's beside the point. Fairly obvious. Okay. So really, where we get the nutrients that we need for our internal organs, for our glands, is from that very same tissue. Which is why vegetarians and even more so vegans start having real trouble as far as heart conditions and situations. They start losing muscular tonicity because they're simply not able to get the nutrients. It's not necessarily even the protein that one needs purely through a vegetarian or an especially vegan source. That's what happens, okay? For example, they can't get B12. Very difficult to get B12. Folic acid, you can get that. But it's difficult, right? Just as one nutrient that's actually on this list. So hey, they could take one a day and they should be fine, right? So what happens is that there are also other factors, and that's somewhat what I'm going to be talking about this evening as well. There's other factors when you eat organ meat. for example, let's say that you take the best supplements in the world. And if you do, likely it's because you're one of my clients, right? All right. Anyway, let's say that regardless, you take the best supplements in the world. Now, how can you be sure? Let's say that you're taking a supplement for your liver or for your lungs. How can you be sure that when you take that supplement and the body metabolizes it, that those nutrients are actually going to that tissue? How can you be sure of that? In reality, you can't be, depending on how that particular supplement is formulated. There are ways of ensuring it. But oftentimes we don't even think about that, right? How often, you've taken many supplements yourselves, how often have you actually thought about, how is this supplement I'm taking, how can I be sure it's actually getting to the area that I'm taking it for? It's a legitimate question. Because if the nutrients aren't getting to that area, then why the heck take it? Right? The way that you do it is through organotherapy. So oftentimes, especially when you're getting into the health professional level of supplementation, you're going to see organ pieces, or parts is a better word, if you will, in supplements. And the reason is twofold. One of which I have already talked about at fairly good length already. It's going to supply the nutrients that that tissue particularly needs. But the second factor is that it has RNA, ribonucleic acid, of the tissue that you're trying to support. And what happens is that tends to direct the nutrients to that area. Now, is that pretty cool or what? Isn't that interesting? So think about this. Let's say that we have, what's an easy way? Let's say that there is elevated liver enzymes, which means that there's oxidation inflammation going on in the liver, all right? And this can go on for years in many people, right? This can be a situation that's watched continuously through the medical establishment, but it can go on for many years. Now, every 5 to 7 years, every one of our organs, all of the tissue throughout our body is regenerated. It's new. Every 5 to 7 years, the body remodels itself. So why is it that after 5 to 7 years, that person who had elevated liver enzymes still has elevated liver enzymes? The body uses DNA in order to replicate that specific cell. So it uses DNA for liver cells to replicate and regenerate its own liver cells. So therefore, that means if that DNA was 100% accurate, then upon replication of the cell, there would no longer be liver enzymes, elevated liver enzymes. Do you see that? Okay. Or whatever issue was going on within that liver. So then that means, and take this home because this is the most important point of the entire class, that means that something is degrading your DNA if you are continuing to have a problem. All right? And what happens with degraded DNA? The copy of the copy of the copy of the copy keeps getting worse. All right? And so, before you became on a total health restoration program, what did you notice about your particular health issues? Either depending on your age, because age does matter, it's linked to time, no more than that. Sometimes it's more energy, but beside the point. Usually it starts degrading. It doesn't improve on its own. That means something is interfering with your DNA. It cannot replicate itself accurately. Now, is that a little bit scary to think about? That's what's actually going on. So then the question becomes twofold. One, how do we make sure that the body even remembers, let's say it's been going on for 5 to 10 years, how can we even be sure the body remembers how to reconstruct a liver now? You see the point? That's a real significant issue, and it's a very good question. And secondly, how can we identify and remove what's degrading the DNA? Because even if we can help the body somehow remember how to construct a liver, if we haven't removed what's degrading the DNA, then what's going to happen? Over time, same problem again. You see that? Now, I'll tell you that we can remove many of the things that degrade DNA. Some of them we cannot avoid. So what does that mean? That means we're always going to have some kind of issue in the body as far as copying the DNA and restructuring, regenerating, and reproducing our organs. our tissue. Do you see that? So you may ask, what kind of things affect our DNA? I'll tell you one thing that happens constantly and we're inundated with and cannot get away from it at all, ever. Would you like to know what that is? Electromagnetic radiation. Electromagnetic radiation. What the heck is that? Anyone like to hazard a guess? Cell phones, mobile devices, Wi-Fi. All right? If you look at your cell phone and it has a signal, guess what? Your body's inundated with electromagnetic radiation. That means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, and almost any, literally any location on Earth. Where does your GPS work? Does it work out in the boonies? Hell yeah, it does. Guess what? There's a signal there. Okay, that's just, it's blanketed. The entire Earth is blanketed with electromagnetic radiation. What does specifically electromagnetic radiation do? Do you know? Typically, when you're inundated with it, your DNA can only replicate up to 75% of the original, which means 25% is degraded. Now that's a little serious, right? It's in our homes, it's in our vehicles. In fact, vehicles themselves have gigantic amounts of electromagnetic radiation, especially if it's past, let's say, 2008, 2010, when there's so much navigation and Bluetooth technology and on and on and on. Satellite radios. You get the point? So that's what I mean earlier when I said there's some things you cannot avoid. So there has to be degradation, right? Okay. Now, some of the things, since I mentioned electromagnetic radiation, that you can do is, number one, turn off your cell phones or don't have them in your bedrooms when you sleep. All right? Do not carry them on your body ever. All right? Secondly, if you have to have Wi-Fi in your home, which most people do, it's highly convenient and a real pain in the butt if you don't. So what you can do is you can either have it on a power strip so that you can turn off the router at night, which gives your body a bit of a rest, actually a very good rest, okay? Or they even make power strips now that are timed. So you can set a time. At 12 a.m. turns off, 6 a.m. turns on. You don't even have to flip a switch. I like that because, you know, fundamentally I'm lazy. Flip switching is difficult. Just ask my wife. No, actually I push her button so she wouldn't. Yeah, that doesn't work. Okay.
More time efficient, have a lot of other things you'd like to do.
That's why. Yes, thank you. I like that excuse. All right. So the other things that are very constant in most people's lives, but we have total control over. Isn't it nice to have total control over things? Be careful nodding your head because you may not like about what I'm going to say. What we have total control over is diet. Diet interferes with DNA replication. Replication. Say that 10 times fast. Okay? So we can totally control what we put into our mouth or what we do not put into our mouth. All right? So allergies can continuously create issues with tissue, etc. So we can remove whatever our body is allergic to as far as foods or intolerant to. Okay? Now there's some other things that is controversial because people don't do enough research. And that is actually genetically modified organisms. Now, Monsanto, which is the Frankensteinian company, claims that, of course, when you consume said genetically modified organisms, besides it's incredibly beneficial for the earth that they have decided to make them, right? And everyone else living on the earth and all animals and all vegetation, of course, because they're just, you know, completely humanitarian. But nonetheless, they say that when a human, or for that matter animal, actually I'm not sure if they claim animals, but I am positive about humans, that it does not interfere with human DNA. So when you take this spliced insect and glycophosphate, you know, imbued corn, for example, that can't possibly affect your own DNA. That's what you hear. That's the party line from Monsanto. All All right? And that's what many, many people, especially the skeptics of genetically modified organisms, continuously say. However, it's very interesting that it's been studied. And in fact, here is a study from PLOS. PLOS is a wonderful resource. It's actually a reference of studies. I believe they're international. Hold on. Yes, international studies on all kinds of health-related issues. All right. So this is from PLOS, and this is just the first page. The abstract. Well, the title of the study is "Complete Genes May Pass from Food to Human Blood." Oh my God. Do you understand what that's saying? All right. That says that our bloodstream is considered to be an environment well separated from the outside world and the digestive tract. According to the standard paradigm, so that means Monsanto's party line, large macromolecules consumed with food cannot possibly pass directly to the circulatory system. Blah, 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 blah. Says, however, that's wrong. That study found over 1,000 individuals that indeed it does. So, really, unfortunately, we can choose what we eat, right? We can definitely decide what to eat, what not to eat. The problem is we cannot 100% be certain that what we're eating is actually not genetically modified. It is a huge problem that will only get worse. For example, let's say, I don't recommend eating corn anyway, but let's say that you're choosing organic, non-GMO certified corn. Now here's the problem. Where are those crops grown? Oftentimes right around the Monsanto corn.
Yeah.
All right?
And
And wind blows, and there's cross-contamination. Exactly.
then Monsanto goes and sues the organic people.
And that is exactly what happens. Be aware that they do test those crops, and guess what? There's lawsuits saying, oh, you're growing our patented corn. Well, guess what? That's supposed to be organic, non-GMO. It's not. All right? So we cannot be sure that anything that we consume that is organic and even certified non-GMO is actually non-GMO. You cannot be sure. And you just have to assume it probably isn't. And we definitely know it affects human DNA. It's a gigantic problem. All right? So sometimes clients ask, well, when can I get off some of these supplements? Anytime, really, whenever you choose to. But when you start understanding that our body is literally under attack, do you think these foreign organisms that you understand that genetically modified organisms have never appeared on Earth? They are total alien creation, right? And so we have this alien DNA that's never up to this time appeared on this planet, now enter our bloodstream and mingle with our own DNA. That's not going to be a problem. It's a huge problem. Is that making sense? Okay. So then it brings us back to organotherapy, because we have to have ways of supplying the nutrients that our bodies need, or specifically our organs and glands need, and helping the body to identify how to reconstruct those organs. Because if it's not radiation, electromagnetic radiation that's interfering with the duplication and reproduction, then it's actually other foreign DNA that's totally screwing up the DNA and regeneration process. See the issues? Okay. Now there's another thing that is very helpful. So organ meats, or eating different organs and glands, is what I'm talking about specifically here. In addition to that, there is something called SAR Codes. Has anyone ever heard of SAR Codes? SAR Codes have been around for almost 300 years. Isn't it amazing we've never heard of it? It's like, what the heck is a SAR code? Good question. The question is, how do you spell that? S-A-R-C-O-D-E-S. SAR Codes. SAR Codes is a homeopathic. It's a category of homeopathics. Do you know what homeopathics are? Okay, let me briefly talk about homeopathics. All right, homeopathics were created about 250, almost 300 years ago by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who was a medical doctor. Oh my God, a German medical doctor. And unlike allopathic doctors, he was a homeopathic, or became, or created homeopathy, or became a homeopathic doctor. So what's an allopathic doctor? That's our orthodox medicine of today. Do you know what allopathic means? It means to treat disease with poison. Literally, that is what it means. Okay? And that is what a medical doctor, they are an allopathic doctor. Okay? So they treat disease with poison. All right. So Samuel Hahnemann thought, well, that doesn't seem like a good idea. So let's try something different. Well, he actually did end up treating with poisons, but that's beside the point. What he did was he would have an ill individual, okay? And he would take a well individual and try to find different substances that he gave the person who is well until he induced the identical symptoms in that well person as the ill person had. Once he found that one substance, he would make a tincture of it and dilute it down and dilute it down. So basically he'd make a tincture, the tincture, the tincture, the tincture, the tincture, and then give that to the ill person. That is homeopathy.
They do that in asthma.
Yes.
Allergies.
Yes.
Shots.
Yes. Because what it does is create an immune response for that specific thing. Okay? So that's homeopathy. So these are homeopathics, and what SAR codes are is the actual DNA imprint or coding or information or blueprint, whatever you would like to call it, of perfectly healthy organs, glands, and tissue. Isn't that fascinating? All right. So what that does is supply to your body, the DNA, how to reconstruct the information, to reconstruct that specific tissue. So it's very interesting that I found that usually when a client starts with me, what they need in the beginning typically, now this, you know how averages are, right? Typically is they need whole food nutrition supplements. So that means the actual foundational materials that should occur in food, because it is food concentrates that I give them, which includes, when I say food, it includes animal parts. All right, so they're getting all the nutrients that their body needs foundationally. And then as they progress, very often they start testing for things like this. So what's happening? What's happening is that their body's being repleted of the raw materials it needs to reconstruct the tissue, but then it's saying, wait a minute, I kind of forgot how to completely make a liver. I got it to about 90%, but that 10%, I'm not sure if it should be a rat liver or a calf liver, or should there be some kind of corn in there, DNA spliced with spider webbing? I don't know. I need help. So that's what these can do. And they can actually direct that nutrition where it needs to go. Okay? Questions so far?
Is the SAR?
SAR code?
Okay, you speak of the liver,
Mm-hmm.
and then you speak of SAR codes,
Mhm.
and now I'm slightly confused as to whether or not they're the same thing or different.
You can have liver SAR codes.
Okay. And the
So a SAR code
DNA blueprint.
is the information of healthy tissue, whatever it is.
How do you get a SAR code versus just liver parts? I mean, how does that differentiate from eating liver?
Well, because it's going to be a very, very dilute amount of that tissue. Okay?
Oh,
Think about liver, and then if you diluted that in water 1,000,000 times, for example. All right? That is a SAR code. So it's purely the information. It has none of the material in it. Does that make sense? Purely the blueprint.
they have seen that SAR codes do help.
Yes.
Okay. Ironically, allergy shots, if you do not remove the problems, allergy shots don't make enough difference to matter.
If you don't remove the allergen, right.
And
Well, that falls
I
in.
did not know what the allergen was with my daughter.
Right.
Until we saw a different health doctor back in West Texas. And as a matter of fact, that was why when I heard about you, I was already slightly familiar with some of the techniques because I had already seen some of this. And my daughter had been told, hey, cut the sugars out completely, like, and she did, and that was the biggest improvement right there. And then we
Helps,
moved
right.
to, of course, Oregon, where the air quality is just ever so slightly better.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And that's a very good point. That goes back to saying that if we cannot remove what is interfering with the replication of our DNA, then we can't ever truly solve the problem. Which is that think of the allergen. In fact, I said food allergies or food intolerances, as an example, is something that interferes with that process. So very good point. Okay, so again, SAR codes are homeopathics, and they are the blueprint, if you will, of an organ or any tissue, gland. Okay. An easy way of thinking about organotherapy, by the way, is how many are familiar with the medication called Armour Thyroid. Okay, Armour Thyroid is pig thyroid, and it's prescribed often for hypothyroidism, as an example. That's actually a form of organotherapy. However, when they prescribe Synthroid, that's now purely allopathic medicine because it's synthetic thyroid, Synthroid. Okay, interesting. All right, any questions so far? No? Okay, so here's another thing. Have any of you ever heard of chimeras? No? Okay. It's basically like something out of the island of Dr. Moreau. So what was that about? It's crazy people, apparently, as the story goes, as the movie goes and books go, that were splicing animals with humans, right? Okay. That's basically what chimeras are. The only problem is that it is not fantasy. In fact, they are being studied and created in gestation farms in the United States. That's what they're called, gestation farms. Okay? So, because people won't believe me unless I show it. They just look at me and say, okay, where's your tinfoil hat, right? So, anyway, they do. I'm no kidding. Or it's like, they just don't even hear it anymore because it's so, I mean, it's wild. If I didn't see it, frankly, I wouldn't believe it either. So this is actually the MIT journal. You know MIT, right? Gigantic, high-tech university, all right? Incredibly brilliant people. Too brilliant, in my opinion, are there, all right? So this is specifically, it's called the MIT Technology Review.
Too brilliant and unethical together.
Yes, and this is what it's called. Human animal chimeras are gestating on U.S. research farms. And this is a very long article. I think it's 11 or 12 pages, all right? And basically, it's what it sounds like. These pigs and sheep are growing human parts.
I've heard about this already.
All right? So just think about that corn and the soybeans and the cottonseed oil and the canola oil that's been modified. What could you possibly imagine is going to happen as time goes by with this kind of thing? That is incredible. It is science fiction that isn't fiction. Science reality that's freaking scary. So think about that. I mean, you're going to tell, and guess what? When this becomes totally mainstream, you're going to say, oh, well, you know, it's just like the genetically modified corn. It's not going to possibly affect you or human DNA. How would that be possible? Now, if you read the article, and I highly suggest you do, all right, and all you have to do is go to Google, type in chimeras MIT, and you'll find this very article. It's technologyreview.com, I think. Yeah, technologyreview.com, and you'll find it. And so the lead scientist, Japanese lead scientist there, is kind of makes a joke out of it, except he's not joking. He says, well, we use a 0.5% of human DNA, and that doesn't cause any problems as far as, human, animal, Dr. Moreau problems. He says, but when we start getting upwards to 40% of human DNA and sheep start walking on 2 feet, we might have to do something about that. Ha, ha, ha. Now, to me, that seems insane. Can you imagine? So, again, there is a war on for your health. It is being attacked, and believe me, they know what the hell they're doing, obviously. And when you look at this article, it's really pretty cool because they got, it's amazing, really, how they can do it. They can take mice and put rat ears on them, or rats with mouse nose, or completely white rats, which only mice can be white. I mean, they can just change. They even show one where it looks exactly like a half mouse, half rat. It's incredible. I mean, think about the technology and the preciseness of what they're doing with the DNA. And you think that's not affecting our DNA? It's affecting the entire friggin' planet. Organotherapy to the rescue. Thank God, literally. All right? How else can you get what you need for your organs? How can you do it? And make sure that it's not chimera organs. All right. Any questions? That's all I got about organotherapy. I can see people are kind of like, oh my God.
I've already heard much of this already. I read so much, but it's just, I learned a couple of good things out of it.
Good.
It's awesome.
So the next step for anyone who is not already a client is an initial consultation, because we need to be able to identify if we can actually help you through nutritional or organotherapy. And the way we do that is through an initial consultation. We do several different forms of testing during that initial consultation. We do a complete nutritional workup. We get your medical history as well. Now typically, it takes quite a while, about 90 minutes, figure set aside time, 90 minutes. And it costs $249 if you just walk in. All right. Now, if you refer to us through one of our clients, then you get a $100 discount. So it's $149. However, if you are watching a live stream or in the class, then you can get an initial consultation for only $62. But there is, of course, a string. And the string is for you who are here in the little gift bag you have. There is a sheet that says Public Education Workshop Screening Form. You'd fill that out. You'd give that to Candace, and you'd make an appointment this evening, be seen within the next 10 days. All right? Now, in live streaming, it's very simple, probably even easier than that, because instead of filling something out, you just have to text a number. All right? You text total health, no space, 2442222. All right? And then it will ask for your email. You text the email, and then all that information of exactly what to do will be immediately sent to you. All right? And do check your email too if you text this, because it will ask for a confirmation, all right, before it sends it. So you do have to confirm it. And you have, for the ones who are live streaming, up till 11:59 p.m. this evening. At 11:59 p.m. this evening, if you get the information and send the email it talks about, well, you won't get $60 off. That's all there is to it. I'll probably send you a friendly email and say, no, sorry, you're late. $149. All right? Any questions before I conclude? No. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. See you all next time.